Hi, this is Amara, your tour guide to the spiritual plane. And today we are talking about actually the spiritual plane, the causal plane, in the series of the 7 planes of existence, which is one reality map that helps to explain the spiritual world. And these planes all coexist in the same location. So if you're confused by the idea that there are 7 of them, there could be 20, there could be 3, it doesn't really matter. They're all in the same location. We talk about the lower, middle, and upper world, but they aren't geographically different from each other. So today, the spiritual plane, the causal plane, is the place where deities exist, the gods and goddesses. That could be the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It could be Maiden, Mother, Crone, or it could be individual deities. So my thinking around what deities are is that they are energies, archetypes that humans have created over time by their belief. They're sparks of divinity, sparks of energy that have taken on a flavor of something, of a sort of universal archetypal energy. And we've named those things, that energy, things like Aphrodite or Kali or Pan or Neptune, or to get out of the Greek pantheon, Odin or Shango. These are all kinds of energies that have flavors, and some of them are very similar in flavor, and some of them can actually be historically traced by, so for instance, the Greek gods and goddesses are evolutions of the Mesopotamian, Sumerian gods and goddesses. There's like an actual chain of that change as the world shifted and civilizations rose and fell. So when we are thinking about miracles or thinking about magic, where our prayer goes when we are praying, however you think of praying, that might be meditating, that might be visualizing, that might be, really standard prayer, like please help me kind of thing. That is going to this plane where the gods and goddesses are, and that's able to trickle down back into our physical reality. So a practice that I engage in is called aspecting or drawing down, invoking, which is calling that archetypal energy into my own personal aura, and then speaking with the words of that deity, or writing with the words of that deity, expressing what that archetypal energy would be telling us at any given time. So that's a practice that I call, or that is called, the charge of the goddess or the charge of the god, which I consider to be a literary form of how we can express sort of a universal energy at any given time by connecting with it in a very specific way. And I heard that once explained as kind of like a switchboard, an old-fashioned switchboard where you can plug into a hole and on the switchboard your cord, and you might be connecting with, the deity Venus, or you might be plugging into a different hole and connecting with the deity Anya. So I'm just picking different pantheons. Those are similar energies. They're love goddesses, but they have maybe a slightly different way of being. Or you can plug into something completely different, like Hades or Ereshkigal, who's the Sumerian deity that's kind of like Hades, the queen of the underworld. So that's a very different feeling than a, Anya, who's a fairy goddess, fairy queen. So when we are praying, which is sort of a more simple form of that connection, we are sending our thoughts, our thought forms, our desire into a realm where it might be picked up by this archetypal energy and help to be created in physical form. And when we are praying, which could look like meditating, or it could look like, putting your hands in front of you and kneeling down on the floor, or it could just be communing with the beauty of the world. I consider that to be praying, really enjoying a cup of coffee on a frosty morning, and connecting with the energy of love. That's praying just as much as anything else. That's how we are connecting with the form of spirit that lives on this plane. And it's something that, because it vibrates at a very different level than our plane, it's not somewhere we can visit on a regular basis or all the time. We can't always be connected with that level of spirit, but we can be aware of that energy. So here's my example of how that occurred for me in one particular instance. Many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, a friend of mine asked me to go with him to a fire walk, walking on hot coals. And it was a sort of corporate, very rah-rah experience, which isn't really my energy. I'm kind of much more calm and gentle and not really rah-rah. So I felt like I needed to make it work for me, because I wasn't going to be able to to express myself in the way that the corporate trainers were asking us to sort of, like pump our fist and get our energy up, which is all kind of the same connecting way. So I asked the goddess Brigid, who is a Celtic goddess of the forge and poetry and healing, to come be with me, to walk with me across the coals. And that energy, which is, this vibrating much faster than my usual physical form, helped me to cross the coals without burning my foot, though I did get a very tiny burn on one toe that was gone by the next day. And I guess that is what the other people were doing, walking across the coals and raising their energy in the by getting excited and shouting and being, very enthusiastic, was a similar energy, but not as it's not as spiritually connected in a conscious way as the way I was doing it. So that's the kind of practice that I have. I enjoy invoking or aspecting deity, and that is one way that I do it. I often do this practice also as part of the rituals that I participate in, where I'll give like a seasonal sermon, or what I called earlier the charge of the goddess, the idea that deity might have a specific message for us at different times of the year, and that I do in more of a ritual ceremonial space. So how else might you use the idea that we can connect with these specific deities? Well, one thing that's similar but not mindful aspecting is to think of them as avatars, and how can you on a given day or given week adopt a deity and learn something about them, and then try to use some of their um, their mythology, their stories, to help you try a different energy on. So if you're having a situation where you need more courage, you might connect with a deity like Artemis or Diana, who's a huntress, who's a virgin goddess. She has a band of female warriors by her side, hunters, and she's able to go and protect the wildlife and protect the forest. And so that kind of energy might be super useful for you if you, say, have to have a meeting with a colleague or your boss and you're having some trepidation about it, because then you can kind of emulate or take on that archetype, that energy in your daily life. You could pick any mythology. We're often in our culture very familiar with Greek mythology because we learn it in school, and the mythology is readily part of literature that we read. But there's all kinds of myths, and I encourage you to maybe go to the library or look around online and find some myths that inspire you, and see if you want to take on the practice for this week or some time of adopting an avatar and seeing if you learn anything from, being Persephone for a week or being Poseidon for a week. And even if, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, you can take on a goddess energy if you're a man, or a god energy if you're a woman, because we're all some combination of magnetic and active energies, and we can connect with any of them. So that's what I leave you this week, and I hope that you try that practice and put some comments in the chat if you try it and learn something. I wish you many blessings, and I hope to talk to you soon.